Okay, here we go. Kembo, Kembo, natatanzambi yamazulu. Awe, nusiemi betwabu. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Sarah Singer, and on my channel, I talk about plant-based wellness and biblical spirituality. In this video, we are in for a treat, as you can see by the title, The Supremacy of Kikongo, Humility and Spiritual Parallel of Language Learning. This title was inspired by my beautiful guest, our sister and Mama Kana. She's a gem and such a light in this awakening. And I'm just so honored and excited to have her here, have you here. So so Mama Kana, can you just introduce yourself? Well, first, hold on. Let's pray in. Let's pray in. Tatan Zombie, Father, I thank you for this time. I thank you for this gathering. I thank you for the information and for the sharing of our mama and sister that will go forth. Thank you for how you have anointed her with the understanding and the wisdom that you've given her. I ask that every ear that hears all that is said in this video is increased and edified by the words that go forth. I thank you for your Mwanda Nsini. I welcome your presence. And I just say, Matando Masaka, Father, thank you for this time and this gathering. Ingeta. So yes, Mama Kana, can you please share just who you are? And actually, let's start with your testimony.
Okay. The awakening?
Yeah. Your awakening, who you are, just whatever's on your heart to say. Go ahead.
Okay, so Kana nKembi Madia, that is my Kikongo name. All praises to the Most High via Melo. I want to actually define the name.
Sure, please.
Because it is what's beautiful about my Kikongo name is it means the same thing as my Babylonian name, so to speak. So Kana is promise. And if you guys remember the Bible, it talks about the promised land, the land of Canaan. That's where Kana comes from. And also, so my first name being Lisa, from the root of Elizabeth, that's what it means, promise and oath of God. And it also means glory of God. So nKembi, as many listeners hear the word Kembo, you can see that in there. That's a glory of God. And then Madia is a nurturer and one who feeds and nourishes. So that's where the Madia comes from. Beautiful. And so I believe that my name is prophetic. And I am a worshiper, so I'll start that way. I feel like that's my true identity. Despite the professionality, my purpose and destiny is to worship. It's worshiping him, praising him. I don't need a band to do it, even though I'm a member of a band. So I've loved the Lord all my life. And what I love about the awakening is finding out the different layers of his, the parts of the identity that were there all along, and I'm just discovering it. So nothing was taken away from him. It was my eyes have been open. So in 2017, my eyes were fully, or no, we're not fully awakened. We're all beginning. It's still a beginning. So it's been about 3.5 years since I've accepted that we are the people of Isolele. Mm-hmm. And like most people, the Bantu awakening is, I call it the real awakening. Bantu awakening is the reality of, I almost want to say it gives you a direction, because there's so many directions. So many people have so many philosophies. And it veers off the path of true worship, which is just a daily walk with the Most High. True worship is going back to Adam in the garden. And I often say to people who know me really well, all secrets are in the garden. So this Bantu awakening for me is just a path to put us back to the original plan for man, is to get us back there. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question, because I could go on. That could be a whole 5-hour video.
No, so that's beautifully said. My excitement when I talk to you and just I feel like what you bring out of people is the connection between your experience with languages, your mothering and teaching spirit. I remember when I first saw you in the comments, and what I mean by saw you in the comments is because you were just affirming everyone, you were teaching, and I'm like, this woman, she has a spirit of a teacher. Like, who is this? And obviously, later then I found out that you are a teacher. So can you share with us your professional background and your learned experience and how that has connected with your experience in the awakening?
Okay. So I am, by profession, I'm a Spanish teacher. I've been teaching Spanish for, I would say, almost 25 years. I started off as a tutor in the university. I'm a graduate of the University of Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts. The place, if any people don't know where Massachusetts is, it's one of the smallest states in the union, because I know you have an audience that is not just American. In the United States, and I don't mean to rub this in anybody's face, but the best schools are in Massachusetts and Connecticut. That's where Harvard and Yale is. Harvard, Cambridge, Massachusetts, the University of Massachusetts. They have a really high standard of learning. So a lot of people come here from all over. And I want to say that because of that, I've been exposed to people from all over the globe for years. We are the smallest state, one of the smallest states in the nation, but we have one of the most diverse groups of people in the world. Some of my neighbors have been from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Sudan, Iraq, like next door neighbors. We all, like, my children have grown up with people from all over the world.
Wow.
So in the university, I started off as a student. I wasn't even a Spanish teacher. I was an art student. Art is my background, painting and drawing. And then I realized, well, now I need some money. This is not working. And I always loved Spanish. I took Spanish in high school. I took advanced placement classes, which, for those who don't know, advanced placement classes are a student in high school taking college level class. So in high school, I was already at the college level doing some intermediate Spanish work. Then I switched over to art, because that's my true love, is art and calligraphy. But
Yeah.
when you are a family person, you have to take care of the bills. So Spanish was the way that provided a more financial stability for me and my family. That's what I was thinking. I didn't have any idea that the Most High had other tricks up his sleeve. Like, wait till I show you what you're gonna do with Spanish. But so from there, the university, I have a bachelor's in Spanish. And then later on, I achieved a master's degree in English as a second language. But I love language learning, period. It's one of my hobbies. So I don't know if you want me to talk about the other languages, but for Spanish, that's,
Yeah, so because I also know briefly what you shared with me is your, like, obviously you were studying art, then you needed to switch over to Spanish or an actual trade that you felt was more lucrative. And then, so tell us about your experience with language and culture, or like experiencing other languages. And then tell us, of course, how many languages do you speak, and your literal personal experience with languages.
Okay. I first want to also say this about the Spanish culture. It's not a race of people, it's a whole bunch of people. And one of the things that led me to the awakening is I started finding out how many Black Hispanics there were.
Mhm.
And then I started making my students do projects. And I would actually literally do this. All right, you got Argentina. How many Blacks are in Argentina? You got Peru. How many Blacks? And then when they came back with, oh, I'm thinking a few hundred people. Each of these countries had slaves, and they're coming back with 500,000, 2 million, and I'm like, what? And then I started. So this is before I fully awakened. So when I came into the awakening, that tied everything together. That the Most High is going to use me to um, through Spanish to reveal to them how they are. And so, um, like, I don't want to diverse too much, but there was a few people who had YouTube channels, and I actually literally asked them, you need to do Spanish because I'm witnessing to people in Spanish and I have no videos to show them. And
Mhm.
I don't have an active YouTube channel. So, but how many languages do I speak? Okay, so my first language is English.
Mhm.
Spanish is my second language, and depending on the day, it's my first language because I'm a Spanish teacher and I teach Spanish. So Spanish has different levels. You can be a mediocre student of Spanish and be able to actually teach Spanish level one. So I've taught Spanish on all levels: level one, level two, level three honors, Spanish level four. That's where you almost get into fluency. And then there's a highest level of Spanish, which is Spanish advanced placement, which is the college level. I've tutored people in Spanish. I've also taught all the way down the scope. I've taught Spanish to in the Montessori schools. I've taught preschool Spanish.
Wow.
And what's nice about children, so Yesiah said, you will not enter the kingdom unless you're like a little child. Um, they're some of the best students. They don't ask all these crazy, they just take it. And so when I teach little kids, even if they're American and never have heard, I don't speak to them in English. So some people know this about me. I have 3 children, and I don't speak to my children in English, not at all, zero. So if I slip up and say something in English, they'll go, "What?" Um, so from Spanish, um, which is one of the 5 Romance languages, Romance as in from the Roman Empire. I used to think when I was a kid, "Ooh, Spanish is so romantic." No, Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire. In other words, it was birthed from Latin, um, and so it makes it easier to understand the other languages. But so you said how many other languages?
Yeah.
I and this will tie into the question later on.
Mhm.
When I was about to graduate, I needed to have a certain amount of credits. And so I'm like, I need another class.
Mhm.
I want to study another language. And literally, it was going to be Japanese or Russian because I had a lot of Japanese friends and a few Russian friends. But I was so lazy that I didn't want to take and learn the alphabet. And I saw Swahili. I'm like, oh, I've heard of that language. I wonder what it is. Then I found out it was an African language. And I was like, wow, I should learn this because I'm African American and I love learning and loving all these languages. And I don't know any African language. That's a shame. I'm going to take the African language.
Wow.
That's how I ran into Swahili. And I'll just briefly say that the phonetical system which is sounds, phonics. I don't want to assume that people know these terminologies. The sound system of Spanish and the Bantu languages are identical. So if any of you out there speak Spanish, I won't use French. French has nasalities and all kind of things and guttural sounds from the throat. The Bantu languages, well, I can't speak for all the Bantu. I can only speak for Kikongo and Swahili, maybe Lingala. I don't know it that well, but it's the basic vowels a, e, I, o, u, and if you can say those, you're in. You don't have to really struggle. So Swahili was an A plus for me. I got an A plus.
Wow. Okay, so English, Spanish, Swahili.
Oh, the other languages that okay. So now that those are languages. Okay, so English and Spanish I'm fluent in. Swahili I have basic conversational skills in, basic, real basic.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, my husband speaks a dialect of French, and I have a basic knowledge of that. You
Okay.
know, it's not proper French. So if someone speaks to me in French, I'll probably respond to them in the dialect. But I am trying to learn French. There's an app called Duolingo, and I'm learning a lot. I also went pretty far with Mandarin Chinese.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's been a minute. So Arabic, just phrases, um, not like a conversation. I used to teach Spanish in a city that was primarily heavily Russian and Polish. So
Mhm.
I started learning Russian and Polish. Whoever I interact with, if they have another language, what I do is I ask them, how do I say hello to you? How do I say goodbye to you? And then I start adding more phrases on them. There's a trick to it. I can share that later if we end up that route.
Mhm.
But I'm forgetting a language. I was going Greek for a while. When I first awakened and I didn't know the Bantu truth,
Mhm.
I was getting into Yiddish, Hebrew, and singing songs. I learned languages through singing. It's very effective. So
Yes.
I'll give a shout out back to Mama Nicole.
Yeah.
um, she used the singing method, and it was crazy. I don't know her personally, but that is absolutely how I teach. I'll make my students start singing on day 2, and they think I'm crazy. Like, no, you're not going to make us sing. Yes, I am going to make you sing. Sing, you get an A. Don't sing, you get an F. What is your choice?
Well,
I'm
that's
very tough as a teacher, but I get results, and I've had testimonies. So,
wonderful. Well, yes, definitely shout out to Mama Nicole and her
oh,
her singing lessons. Because so that's perfect. So that in terms of singing, it really I feel like echoes the topic of this conversation because as we learn Kikongo and the multiplicity and how expansive that it really is, and then we're learning the spirituality. We talk about how words are commands or words are um, can be curses or spiritual vibrations, and you know when you talk about frequency and energy, that's what sound waves are. And so that's another thing that I think is really unique about your journey and your experience is how your experience, your ear for music has helped to, or it goes right into your affinity and your talent for your gift really for learning languages. So can you just generally share um, your perspective on the connection between music and learning languages?
so for me, languages are music.
Okay.
Music is language. Language is music. Music is language. And the reason why in the Latin languages, the word language is actually the word tongue. It's a physicality of what shape your tongue is to make that sound produce the right sounds. Um, so a musical instrument is the sound is coming out from the finger plucking or the strum of the guitar, which still involves the fingers. And the funny thing about Spanish is the verb to play an instrument is to touch.
Okay.
So Spanish has two words for play. One is play around, play outside, and the other one is the verb to touch, which, if you translate it, is to touch an instrument. And so, in my experience, when you speak a person's language, you touch their soul,
Yes.
you touch them. And
Yes.
it's like, I've actually had a person here, the praise and worship teams that I was in, we were always international. We were always singing languages because I insisted we have to sing this in French. Now we have to sing it in Spanish. Now we have to sing it. So we actually happen to be singing a song in, ooh, what is the country? Not Malawi. In East Africa. It's, oh, I
North.
can't think of. It's a Bantu language, but I can't remember what it was. The song is "God is so good," and when in that language it's Katonda Mulunji, Uganda. That's what it is. So we were singing in Uganda. This is in the university, and a man walks by. Had no idea. What are the chances of this happening? Where the song is sung, it's a song written by Ron Canoli, and he was doing travels, and he translated the song in 5 different languages, or had it translated. So it went in English, in Spanish, French, Swahili, and then the last language was Ugandan. I think that I'm not sure if that's the name of the language.
Mhm.
At the very moment that we were singing the Ugandan phrase Katonda Mulunji,
Mhm.
which is Mungu Yumwema in Swahili,
Mhm.
walks by and he freezes. And then he comes in the middle of the service, the campus ministry. I was always involved in campus ministries. And he goes, "How are you doing this? This is University of Massachusetts, all kind of people from all over the world.
Yes.
What are the chances of this man walking by exactly the second we sang in his language?"
Mhm.
Because we started it in English and then Spanish. He could have walked by, everybody sings in Spanish. There's so many people from the Spanish speaking world. At that moment, the man we saw his eyes well up. Because
Wow.
that is it. So what I'm saying is it touches the soul.
Yes.
The language touched the soul.
Yes.
And if I were to go even deeper, um, I praise Tatan Zambi for the gift he's given me. I have a very acute ear and I use it. It was the mirror I used for music. My parents are ministers and I was raised in the church and we had to sing. If
Mhm.
we didn't sing, pow, pow.
Yeah.
You're singing. No, I'm not going to sing. What I say? Oh, hallelujah. Hey, we're going to sing. So as an adult, I can enjoy the discipline that I had.
Mhm.
And some things without discipline, you never will develop. So the ear that I developed for music was the same ear I developed for learning languages. Because to me, there were still sounds. It's still, and if you listen to some languages, very singy, very singy. I love the Kikongo language because it's got ups and downs, cadences and rhythms. And, Spanish is very similar. Of course, Kikongo is its mother. So you will touch a person by speaking their language.
Mhm.
Now, on a more acute level, if you can speak their language in a specific dialogue, now you're not only touching them, you're piercing through their soul.
Yes.
So, one of my experiences with speaking Spanish was I learned the general, acceptable Spanish. So Spanish has different dialects. Everybody understands each other, even though they pretend like they don't. It's
Mhm.
like they're hating on each other. Oh, that's what you Dominicans say. Oh, that's what the Puerto Ricans say. Y'all don't know how to pronounce this and that. But the Most High has given me the gift of, if I hear someone from Puerto Rico speak Spanish, I can switch into their dialect.
Mhm.
And when I do that, they welcome me. It's like getting a key to their home in
Wow.
their conversation. I'm serious. I gained fluency in Spanish pretty early when I was younger.
Mhm.
But because I wasn't speaking in their dialect, I was still not they wouldn't invite me in with the jokes and the laughter and all that.
Yeah.
Um, so then I realized I have to sharpen my ear even more,
Hmm.
and then I can be even closer to these people, and it's amazing. When
Yeah.
I'm with Dominicans, I switch to their Spanish. When I'm speaking with Mexicans, I switch over and switch to their dialogue. And sometimes I don't, just to see how they're going to react.
Yeah.
So the acute um, attention to the sounds, you said vibrations,
Yeah.
you are gelling with this person, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't have words to say the experience of doing that. And even one language I didn't mention was Korean.
Hmm.
I only know two words in Korean.
Hmm.
And Koreans are so used to people thinking that they're Chinese. I went into a deli one time and I asked, usually when you people see Asians, they go, oh, you're just all look at the same. It's horrible, very horrible. So he said, I asked him, what's your ethnicity? Because sometimes, even if I said, are you Chinese? I'm like, no, I can't ask him that. I gotta, what's your ethnicity? He goes, Korean. And then I said to him, Annyeonghaseyo. He goes, what? You it was like he was stunned that I didn't say ni hao xin chao shima means it, which is hi, how are you in Chinese in Mandarin. He was just like, it was like, and every time I went to the store,
Uh,
before, because I used Korean to greet him, and that's all I know. I don't know no Korean.
yeah.
He was so awestruck by the fact that I took the time out, separated all the Asian groups, and selected him. And so it's made me feel the love that Tanzambi has for us. He reached down and he doesn't just speak everybody's language, he speaks everybody's dialects and everybody's slang. And it gives me that perspective. I know I'm not the most high, but I get to see, I get to ride in that, I get to take a ride and be the passenger.
Yes. This is so affirming to the fact that that is the humility. Um, and I feel like you said, the key, that is the key in the spiritual unlocking to
Hmm.
what, or I guess the unlocking of what you would call spiritual secrets of a culture, is through the language. And
Yes.
so when we talk about Kikongo, when we talk about it being the original, uh, language of man, um, it's Brother Yanata has said time and time again, and Tio Melo and many others, that Kikongo, once you know the language, it unlocks the scripture, and how it's like we've seen it in so many. I think it's like that Maze Runner or one of those movies about just like the key and lock method, and how all of these things just shift in terms of actualizing and understanding um, things that have been blurred before or misunderstood. So I want to know more about your experience, like learning languages through the realm of like when you prophetically got the understanding of calling this video humility and spiritual parallel of language learning. What does that humility look like for you, or that spiritual parallel to learning languages? What is spiritual about learning languages for you?
Okay, so I will tell you the way I introduce my course when I teach Spanish.
Uh-huh.
It's basically you must never, there's an expression in English,
Mm-hmm.
get off your high horse.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even don't even ride the horse. I've been speaking Spanish for about almost 35 years,
Wow.
and I've learned a lot. And there are some people who are native speakers or they're from that culture, and I speak better than them. Even though that is true, I have to push myself aside, education aside, and not think that I'm an expert in their culture. I'm not an expert in their culture, and there's some things that are just so. The humility comes when you learn a language, you want to get a native speaker, someone who's from the culture, who speaks the language fluently, and humble yourself to them always.
Mhm.
And one of the courses that I did not mention that I taught was Spanish for native speakers.
Mhm.
There's actually a course called Spanish for native speakers, and I taught it at the second level.
Okay.
What that means is, for the listeners who aren't familiar with the United States, Spanish is the number two, and depending on where you live, the first language in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Um, in Massachusetts, if you go to a neighborhood, we have a neighborhood called Plainfield, you're not going to hear no English at all. That was bad English. You're not going to hear any English at all. Um, I'm aware of my Ebonics. It slips out. That's my first language, Ebonics. So you can live here in the United States
Mhm.
and not ever speak any English, which is pretty much how I learned. I just went into the neighborhoods where Spanish is spoken and stopped speaking English because I was raised very poor. I could not afford to travel. And so my experience with praise and worship, I'm going backwards, is I was a member of bilingual churches.
Mhm.
So that's 20 years of my life singing in Spanish and English, preaching in Spanish and English, street ministries in Spanish and English, translating documents. There are maybe some people older generation who know what I'm talking about. No, if you're from the non-denominational background in church, remember there was, like, nowadays you can just project a Word document for praise and worship and everybody follows the lyrics. Well, there was used to be this little lamp, the overhead projector.
Yes.
I used to type up those things, go to the copy center, put it on a transparency like a clear paper, and put it down on that. So I used to do all that stuff.
Mhm.
And we would call it the bilingual music ministry. But that experience um, was humbling, because there's layers to languages. You
Yeah.
can know conversational Spanish, but you may not know the Bible. I took one trip to Mexico and they left me alone to translate a Sunday school class. And I'm telling you, the Bible, that's like, that's way over college. That's like uh, King James in Spanish. There is an equivalent to the Spanish Bible. It's called Queen Reina Isabella. Reina Isabella was Queen Isabel. Queen Isabel, there's a Spanish version of the Bible and it's written in Old Spanish.
Wow.
So those were years of humbling, you know. And there's people, just like there's people who love the King James Bible version. There's people who Reina Isabella, they want that. And then there's a new revised NIV version of the Spanish Bible. So it's like started to become liquid water and watered down versions of the language. So by studying the Bible in Spanish, I had to be humble.
Yeah.
Um, so what I tell my students when they come into my classroom, I'm like, don't ever think you know everything.
Mhm.
Spanish is spoken by there's about 22 countries that speak it.
Wow.
So you can be an expert in Mexican Spanish and then you go to another country and they look at you like you're the biggest fool ever.
Yeah.
Um, it's the so language learning is volunteer humility. You have to volunteer your humility. I met other Spanish teachers who taught the same amount of time I taught, and they would belittle the people of the culture, and the kids hated the teacher for that. Like,
Wow.
she doesn't even speak it right. And she or he would be so secure in their years of practice, but they didn't realize their learning was one dimensional.
Yes.
I When I teach, I present all the dialects and I told the kids to choose. But one thing you're not going to do is you're not going to Anglicize the Spanish,
That's
you
good.
know. And
That's
it's continual him. Even now, I'll still ask. This is a vocabulary word. How do you say it? Okay, how do y'all say it? And I go, class, these are your choices.
yeah. Yeah. So tell us about because with your ear, with your musically tuned ear, and when I say this, y'all, she's being so humble. Mama Kana has an ear. I mean, you can play any song and she'll tell you the immediate chord in like 0.2 seconds, or hear a language and be like, oh, this person is from this. And I'm just like, wow, in terms of the exposure that she's had to different dialects and languages. So with that being said, can you, I want to dive heavy into the Kikongo. Share with us what your first encounter with Kikongo was, and then I kind of want to talk about like just learning Kikongo. So yes, what was your first encounter? Like, what did you hear? How did it make you feel? Like all of that.
All right. I gotta bring up my bro, Nabi Chi. I gave him that nickname. I'm talking about brother Chilombo. Yanata Chilombo. I had a friend and we had both awakened. So I'm going back in the middle of the awakening, 2017, and then Ryan the clock forward, Yiddish brew, blah, 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 Barak Ulanai, and all this other stuff. And, we are the people, Hebrew Israelites, screaming and yelling on the streets. And as said, I got fed up. And then we were past Stephen Darby, and then,
Wait.
my,
Did you know that Yiddish brew was like the fake language, the fake Hebrew? Did you know that before you heard Kikongo, or was it after?
it was after.
Oh, okay.
It
Okay.
was after. I was under the impression that Hebrew, which I always wondered, because I have an ear. I'm like, why does it sound so Germanic? One
Mm,
of the things I hated about German, no offense, I am so sorry for those of you who speak German. I know that there's people who are stuck speaking, they're all the colonizers' language, but German uses the throat a lot.
uh-huh.
English does too. It's not one of my favorite languages. I can speak a bit of it,
Okay.
just very guttural. And I would hear the same sounds in Hebrew, but I just figured, okay, well, it just maybe that's that region. Um, so I remember listening to Sister Nicole's testimony about how she felt like it just wasn't right. And but before she had said that, before I had watched her say that in the video, I had felt the same way linguistically, like sounds weird.
Mhm.
This is ha. Everything is ha ha ha. And I won't name the languages because I don't want to offend people. There are certain languages that uses the throat and I just don't like it. So that was in the back of my mind.
Uh,
My friend from college simultaneously is awakening the same time I am. She just all of a sudden calls me out of the blue. Did you know? She was calling me to awaken me or to inform me. I'm like, yeah, I knew that. She goes, you did? I knew this. So we started sharing videos. Hey, did you watch this video? Did you watch that video? Click, 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 click. So a few weeks had passed and she texts me, she goes, you have to listen to this guy. And I'm thinking, what guy? Who? Now he knows this testimony, I've told it before. This guy, his name is Brother Jonathan.
mhm.
I'm like, okay, whatever. I waited like a few days because I had, like I said, I had it with all this. These people would seem like they didn't know whether they were coming or going, left, right, center. And then all of a sudden, the first video I turned on, I'm like, okay, he's just talking himself.
Yeah.
And then he started with the greeting, Kembo, Kembo. And I'm like, what is that?
Yes.
All of a sudden, I'm like, me, and I'm not, from my perspective and all the sounds that I've been exposed to, it
Mhm.
hit me. Like I was telling you, the language hits you. His Bantu greeting. So the first question I said to myself, I need to know what language that is.
Mhm.
What language is that? It's hitting me in my soul. What he's saying, Kembo, Kembo, Natatan Sambia Mazulu. I'm like, okay, if he doesn't start speaking English real quick, I'm about to click off because I don't know what he's saying. So then afterwards, he started with the greetings to all the Bantus all over them. Like, why is he saying Bantu? The
Mhm.
only time I heard Bantu is when I was taking Swahili.
Mhm.
And then, and then the inside of me started making a connection.
Wow. Okay.
Then I started getting solemn, like, okay, there was this link that it was like, I don't know, like, I almost want to say, like, have you ever watched sci-fi movies?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this being that doesn't know that they have this assignment that was in bridged inside of them. When I heard those words, it was like it enlightened, it woken up. It was another awakening.
Wow.
So that's why I call the Bantu awakening the true and supreme awakening,
Mm-hmm.
because it led all who will accept it
Mm-hmm.
to the true story of Isolele. The true story is Kikongo is the language. I mean, I don't want to veer off too much, but if I were to slightly touch on the speaking of tongues,
Yes.
um, I'll just give this tiny bit of testimony.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I said, I've always been a worshiper. Love worship ever since I was a kid. And the first time I spoke in tongues, I was 8 years old. I didn't know what it was. It scared me to death.
Mm-hmm.
And the Most High must have known that, because it didn't happen again until I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fast forwarding now.
Mm-hmm.
Some people recognize that I've done some videos with Melo. We only uploaded like two, but we actually did. Melo and I have actually done 4 videos.
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth set of cards that I make was from Mama Nicole's worship video. When I started, because I always pray in the spirit, some people call it pray in the spirit, I started hearing Kikongo words.
Wow. Yes.
And, one of the words I heard was the number 8, which is Nana. Sound like just a bunch of sound. Na, 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 na. I'm praying. And all of a sudden I stop praying. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. That's the number 8. The number 8 is likeness, similarity. And then I started linking that with the Lord's Prayer. As it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth. The likeness, the mirror image. Then I started thinking about marriage, and one of the things, it just click, 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 click. So there's so many layers. I
Wow.
will say to the listening ear that if you really want to know the Most High, the language is everything.
Ingeta.
Kikongo, the tongues of angels, and it is. Some people think you're crazy when you speak like this, but when I'm praying with my Creator, I am. It's like you're one with Him. Just
Yeah.
the same way I described, you speak someone's language, you pierce their heart, and it's like there's a bond. So when we all get to the level when we can speak that language
Mm-hmm.
fluently, it's over. I'm
Wow.
quoting, bro, it's over.
It's
um,
wow.
it's absolutely the few words and phrases that I've learned have transformed my entire life.
Mm.
The few phrases. It started off with Brother Yanata, then Brother Masia. I got to give them all a shout out. My life is never going to be the same because of the language. And
Wow.
when I thought I was learning all these languages, and it's not about me trying to learn them because to look smart,
Mm-hmm.
although that is a component. You do increase your IQ with language learning,
Mm.
but I just have a habit of I have a hobby of learning languages. I just love to do it. Like on the Duolingo app, I'm doing 5 languages at the same time just for the fun of it because it's fun. That app is like a video game,
Oh.
but Kikongo is not one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And every word, this was a prophetic word that the Most High spoke to my heart
Yes.
as I was praying in tongues.
Mm-hmm.
Every syllable counts. Now, that was spoken to me years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Every syllable counts. Now, a word can be comprised of 5, 3, 2 syllables. Spanish, hola, Kikongo, siemi. Every syllable counts. And when I started learning Kikongo, and Longi Melo just uploaded a brand new video talking about the number seven. It was a continuation, the 35th video. I'm giving Longi Melo a shout out.
Yeah.
Um, I actually feel uncomfortable not having him to back me up with the Kikongo, because that's another thing. There's a lot of people who think I'm fluent in Kikongo. No way, no.
Yeah.
I just have the advantage of the phonetics from Spanish to pronounce the words, but I don't know. Even the card sets that I made, I haven't even mastered those. But so I'm going to link that every syllable counts to every syllable counts in Kikongo. Every syllable counts. Please, if you have not watched Longi Melo's videos, especially the last three when he's breaking down Kikongo, if I'm not mistaken, he literally points out that one word could have like thousands of combinations.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you people, there's no language that does that. No. Um, there's no language that can do that. There's no language that can say the number one can be the most high and the number one can be seed and the number one is the beginning. And it's also the word speak, because I learned that in Swahili. Unasema Kiswahili? Do you speak Kiswahili? And when he said sema is speak. That's how you say it in Swahili. And you can call the most high Nsiemi. So you can break that down to the one who seeded the planet.
Yeah.
So seeds, you plant seeds.
Yeah.
Semi, the seeder, the planter.
Uh-huh.
And in Spanish, it's sembrar, to seed, and that's how you say plant. Voy a sembrar. I am going to seed. And it's too deep. But that word sembrar in Spanish you can't use that to say the most high. It's
Wow.
only seed. Whereas in Kikongo, it is him again, and it's like giving his whole identity, and it's not even the whole. There will be never an end to him. He's
Wow.
the unending identity. So the more that we learn, you're never going to get it. So it's a continual humility. So
Yeah.
the true humility is to always stay humble, never get on your high horse. uh, a great example of never getting on your high horse is Satan himself, Shaitani. He was so beautiful that he got full of himself, and pride comes before a fall.
Yeah.
So if you want to be fluent in any language, never, ever say, I've arrived. I've seen too many teachers do it, and students will humble them.
Yeah.
Children that they supposedly teach will humble them. So I'm very humbled. Sometimes I jump on comments in people's YouTube videos and how do you say this? And what do I tell them? Let me ask the master, Pastor Melo, and then I'll get back to you. And then like, wow, you know so much. No, I don't know so much. I just asked Pastor Melo. You just got an indirect answer from the person who made the video themselves. But it's a way for me to learn by answering it. So that I know I elaborated a bit too much, but
Perfect.
you will so you want to be fluent in any language, always find a native speaker, always humble yourself to them, and you will be fluent. And as far as Kikongo is, you're not only going to be fluent in Kikongo, you're going to be closer with your creator, because that is the language of creation. And it's so deep and so entrenched. It's like unpeeling an onion, and then you think you got to that bulb, and then there's a whole other explosion of stuff waiting for you in there. It's like, oh, I thought I saw the end of this. No, there's no ending. It's just going to keep unraveling and unraveling. And Yiddish Hebrew can't do that either. It was a it was a great privilege for me to translate those books for Longi Melo in Spanish. I learned. So here's what happened with me.
Mhm.
If you're not bilingual and you read his book only in English, I got to get a deeper meaning because I was reading the book in English, translating into Spanish, learning Kikongo. So
Wow.
I got a triple dose, while most people reading it from English in their, because your brain expands when it learns other languages. It's not like I'm high and better than you. It's just that's the way it is. But I want to encourage everyone, just because just because people perceive me as being gifted in languages, my gift did not get me fluency. It was just the beginning. My gift was only a small dot.
Yeah.
The gift is only the beginning. It's just the start mark. What do they call it when the people run? The starting point.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you got to practice. I practice languages every day. I work really hard at them. I'll spend hours learning them. So it's not just like, oh, your brain just no, that was the start, but it's not the end. And then and you won't ever end. It's just so.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, there was a moment when you were talking and I just felt the presence of the Most High. I literally started to get teary-eyed because um as you were explaining the intricacy and the interconnectedness of humility and learning languages, um, or the fact that learning languages increases your IQ, or that there is an enlightened element of learning languages. So it confirms that there's a I see it as a mind body spirit connection, mind body
Yes.
spirit and soul connection, in the sense that what we meditate on is what manifests. And if our words are commands and actions, if Adam in the garden had the ability to speak and see change, like literally manifest, then as you're learning languages, specifically Kikongo, there's an enlightenment happening. Each word,
Yes.
and when you learn each word, you're meditating. It says
Yeah.
the scripture says meditate on the word. Literally, like learn Kikongo.
You have to. I mean, for anyone, I want to speak to those people who are still wrapped up in Yiddish Hebrew. You don't even know. Oh, man. Can I just express an opinion? This is an opinion. This is not a fact. I don't wear glasses. These are glasses that I need to wear so the screen doesn't bother me. So I got to put them back on. I grew up as a pastor's kid. I'm a PK. I've been there, done that, heard every scripture, all kinds of interpretations, been to all kind of churches, the hallelujahs, the in Mexico they call them the hallelujahs. That's the Pentecostal. The hallelujahs. Oh, here come those hallelujahs. I've seen people jump off pianos and roll on the floor and do cartwheels. I've seen everything since I was a kid. And so one of the things that always bothered me once I started learning language, I would hear a preacher preach. Yeah. Mm. In the Greek, this means this, and that. And then in the Hebrew, it means blah, blah, blah. And in I'm a little child now. I'm analyzing. Maybe I'm a teenager, and I'm going, do you speak Greek? Do you speak Hebrew? When I thought Hebrew was actually something. I mean, it's not nothing. It does have the Yiddish Hebrew does have some layers because I was learning it, and it has deep meanings. But when you compare it to Kikongo, bow down.
Yeah.
One of the things that I will encourage all the listeners to do, and those who are bilingual or trilingual, and bow down to the people of the continent. You're already like polyglot is what they call it. The polyglot means poly, many, glottis, languages. Polyglots from birth. So
Yeah.
their brain is already, this whole thing about Africans are stupid. Get rid of that foolishness.
Yeah.
How do you analyze the Bible in Greek and Hebrew and you can't even make a sentence? You said interconnectedness. And the reason why I started confidently making the conclusion, and it's not that the preaching wasn't legitimate, but you're taking something that's interlocked with other words, then you're extracting one word and you're making a conclusion in a language that's inferior. You make no sense. I'm sorry, that's my opinion.
That's
I just dissed my whole family. Yeah. In the Greek, it says, whatever, Philios, or all those Greek breakdowns and Hebrew breakdowns of all these preachers, and you're like, you guys are extracting a word, and language don't work. Sorry, my bonic slipped out. Language don't work like that. Languages work intertwined with words. I mean, I will speak more on Spanish, but you could take a word and pair it with another word, and you just changed it
Yes,
because of the pairing.
yes.
So to pull out a word and say, this is what this means, and this is what this means in those layers. So even though I'm learning Kikongo, I dare not, I'm only going with, I can only regurgitate what Melo is teaching. I don't have that personal experience. And even though I had the experience that I spoke about with tongues, I am going to back off from, because I, until I become fluent in Kikongo, I have no business breaking it down. I have no business. So I understand the defense and the criticism of people trying to break down the word Nzambi.
Mhm.
Do you speak fluent? You're taking one word with your, let me stop. You can't take one word,
Yeah,
extract it from the sea, and talk about what it's made of. You just took it out of the water. It doesn't make it's dead now. You just killed the word.
yes,
So I'm saying this from a linguistic background.
exactly.
So I took I took um I took linguistics, I took phonetics
Mhm.
and phonology. Now,
Explain.
phonology, if you're not
Yeah.
explain phonology, okay. Phonetics is the sound of words. Phonology is the microscopic bits of those sounds.
Mm. Can you give us an example?
So if I start speaking, you know how I said if and I had breath in front of the word? If. Like in phonology, we break down every single sound and we make a tree out of it and root it.
Mhm.
It was a very painful class to take. Of course, I took Spanish phonology, which was included in Spanish linguistics. It's like taking a language and putting it under a microscope and chopping it all into pieces and studying the little bits.
Uh-huh.
It's it's literally the breakdown of sound in its microorganisms going into the atom of the word.
Mhm.
So when I say that Kikongo is superior, I'm coming from that background and I'm not trying to brag at all. When I got introduced to Longi Melo by Brother Yanata and Brother Masia, I said, guess what, guys? I have a new superhero. His name is Longi Melo.
Ingeta.
I wanted to make an icon with Longi Melo with a big S on his chest for Superman to up and away. Because other people are like, yeah, Kikongo, blah, blah, blah. You don't understand. I know the pedagogy of language. This is, and then, from a spiritual background, my prayer language is the tongues. So I'm analyzing it on all these angles.
Mhm.
And I will firmly say, flat footed, which I am, this is the language. This is the language. And
Ingeta.
unless someone is coming from a background of fluency in another language, they need to take their mouth and zip it and put a chain on it and say nothing.
Wow.
Who was that was the husband of Elizabeth? When I'm using English names, when
Mhm.
Elizabeth was pregnant with John the Baptist and his mouth was shut
Oh, yes.
until
Yes.
he was
Until
born,
baby was born. Yes.
I will just go ahead and say, y'all need to shut up. You need to stop trying to interpret. You cannot interpret a language you don't speak fluently.
Yeah.
Even if you speak some sound in your, so if you have a prayer life and you speak in tongues and you hear Kikongo, you still don't know what you're talking about. You
Mhm.
just got a microbit.
Mhm.
This is a universe of I don't even know how to describe it. Kikongo is like being connected to the entire universe.
Wow.
Every syllable counts. Every single syllable.
Yes, yes. On that same note, so one of the things that I've learned from you, which you learned from Longi Melo, is and preface what Longi means, because of course Pastor Melo, Tio Melo has so many names. So just quickly say what that means.
Okay. Yeah, everybody calls them different things. Longi, which it has a nasality in front of it, and whenever Kikongo has the um the nasal vowel, so nasal meaning it's going through your nasal cavities. So the word nlongi and the word nzambi and the word semi, don't put a vowel on them or you're going to ruin it. So it's not nasemi or anyways. Nlongi means teacher. It also means prophet. And I believe it also means preacher. So what happens is the root of the word is longi with just an L-O. So it's spelled Nlongi, longi. But you got to give a slight sound. And to produce that sound, you just say, Like, say someone comes to you and you would say, no, I don't think so, but you exaggerate it. Nah.
That's
Nah.
yeah.
So I'm exaggerating the What that does is it makes way for the actual word, which is longi. And what Longi Melo has told me is that that nasal consonant empowers the rest of the word.
Yeah.
Telling you people, Spanish doesn't do that. We don't have no hola. It's not hola. Or the word for God is Dios. It's not Dios. It's just Dios. But to say, so the word for God, I want to clarify for you guys, and this is coming straight from Longi Melo, and he always corrects me. And let me tell you, people, every time I make the cards or say something in Kikongo, I go right back to Longi Melo and I say, is this correct? Yes, but okay, all right, bring it. And then he corrects me. And then I say it and I send it back to him and I say, what's that sound like? So I'm never done with just that one correction. I want you to hear me say it and correct me. What the does. So people, listen. Zombie is the word for God. The zombie is the God, is the word for God, the supreme being. By putting in front of it, now this empowers it. So I'm going to give my interpretation. Here's what I picture in the spirit. If I say zombie, by my I am like bowing before the king comes into the throne, and I'm going zombie. All rise, the all honorable creator of the entire universe and the planet is on the throne. Bow down. So, and it's even written like that. It's a little N in a big Z. And I was writing it wrong. I love to confess my faults. I teach like this. Like, class, your teacher just made a mistake. It's this way. So I was writing big N in this little Z in Longi Melo. This is a recent correction. But I love it because it was like, oh, wait a minute, I can see this now. And I literally saw this because as an artist, I saw this picture. Little N is making an introduction to the King of Kings. Nkosi Abankosi. I think that's how it's, I'm guessing.
Uh-huh.
Our king's name is Zombie, and that little N is making an introduction. That's how I see it. I just think that's just so deep.
Yeah.
Because little, and it's just going, it like I can, because I'm a calligrapher, I write calligraphy, and I literally saw the N saying, here's, I will present to you our king.
Yes. And
So
get
I'm just like, oh, snap. There's another one. Every time Longi Melo puts that, he just like, you, and he doesn't know that he's doing this. I just respond and I'm like, you just did it again.
wow. Another
No
another level.
upper. And I'm telling you, people ask me how many languages all the time. I haven't named them, but I've been speaking phrases of about 20 to 30 different languages.
Wow. Wow.
There is no other language that's like that. And I also took cultural linguistics, where we
Okay.
study language from a cultural perspective. I have a lot of language education, but it has nothing on Kikongo, nothing. One of my professors said language, each language, so one language allows you to only see something in one direction. So if I speak English, I can only see this pen from this side. If I speak English and Spanish, I can see this side and that side. If I speak English, Spanish, and French, I see it this side, that side. Now I'm seeing it in 3D. So what I'm saying is if you're monolingual, you can only see something in one dimension, even though you might feel like you're deep. You can't be deep until you get that whole picture. And when I analyze the Kikongo language, that's the bomb of all bombs. That is the dynamite of dynamite, or in Greek, dunamis. It's super dunamis to be able to come in contact. The awakening is nothing until you can meet the language which they stole from us. That to me, the biggest thing that was stolen was not the people, was the language of the people.
Yes.
That's the biggest theft.
Yes.
And I always remember what Yanata says about Simauki Bongo. You much catch the thief with the object in which he stole. That's what he stole. The thief, the Europeans stole the Kikongo language.
Wow.
And now I think as I understand it, when I was decoding some of it, when I was translating, because one of the things, if you don't speak a Romance language, there is so much Kikongo that has remained in Spanish, in Italian, in French. So I actually have the privilege of knowing a little bit more than someone who read the book only in English. So we highlighted that when I was translating, but it's still just little remnants.
Yes.
Like y'all stole our DNA code.
Yes. And on that note, it's funny because that was the first revelation that Micaiah had that trickled down to awakening me and so many others. It was Micaiah's revelation about the Tower of Babel and how the significance of them speaking on one accord and the entire world speaking one language.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Most High's punishment. Was like, oh, you thought you was you thought you were about to do something? Like, nah, son. Here are the separations of perspective, like you're saying. This is, 70 languages. And when you think also on the reverse, who was it? Was it Daniel who got all the languages in one night from the Maliki? And
There's my weakness of the studies. I got to study more.
okay,
But I know he interpreted the writing on the wall, and
yes, but the angels gave him 70 or however many languages, and each language essentially was the ability in which one could climb the stairs. And so that is the perfect illustration to explain that language gives insight. It's broadened your ability to relate. And if ultimately we were all created by one manifesting language, one powerful language, and there's a reason why there is no longer one word, and why the Most High promises us that a word will be restored or a language will be restored, that is the end all be all of communication with the animals, communication with all living beings. We will soon be restored. And I think obviously that's the power in which you speak of, from the perspective of just recognizing that there is no other superior language. And it also
no,
confirms
no way.
why the Most High has hidden Kikongo.
Yes,
Kikongo
and
exists.
decode it, it's a to be able to move around. Longi Melo calls it metathesis.
Okay.
So I was like, when I first heard that terminology, I'm like, we didn't study metathesis in linguistics.
Uh-huh.
Let me look it up. And
Yeah.
when everything in the awakening is, let me look it up. Let me see if he's not talking off the side of his neck. And sure enough, I found it in English and in Spanish. Metathesis.
Yeah.
Switching around consonants, creating new word combinations like little puzzles.
Yeah.
But when you do that in other languages, you get a whole different word. When you do that in Kikongo, you get a word that relates to that word that you scrambled.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Y'all don't even know. It's just like it's impossible. I
So
can scramble. Look at the word for God in English. You scramble it around, you got a dog. That used to bother me. I'm like, wow, and I would like want to challenge atheists, like, yeah, God is just a dog. Like, oh
what
my
supposedly that word
you know,
from yeah, no,
oh my God, a dog. But you can't do that in Kikongo. You're just gonna get God again. You're gonna get the Most High. You're scrambling it up, you're gonna get the principle. You scramble it up again, you're gonna get seed. You're gonna it's just way, way deep.
yes. I was gonna say supposedly that is significant as to the word God actually comes from some Egyptian character that is a dog or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Melo did a video and he actually gave the root of the word dog, and I believe it's from a Germanic tribe, and it was describing it was one of their men, and the word was Gotti. And then in English, because English is 50% German, if you guys didn't know, we're speaking pretty much 50%. That's why a lot of our sounds in English, because I used to tutor, so Spanish is my second language, and then I would tutor English as well. And one of the things that I got a comment from in my in tutoring English was, "Oh, I hate this language. It sounds so like the sound I just made. It's coming from the gut." And then if you listen to English from afar, try this. I always tell my students, try this. You want to know how English sounds? Go into a crowd. No, it's COVID. You won't get it. Go where there's a crowd of people talking in English. You know Charlie Brown's grandma? That's what English sounds like. It does. It sounds like me, 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 me. Spanish sounds like. And
Yeah.
so there's this sound, so that's the musicality. So the the Germanic roots of English is where we get God from.
Mm-hmm.
It was Gotti, and then it got shortened to God.
Mm-hmm.
And Gotti was a supreme person in that Germanic tribe, the so-called heathenistic tribes, barbaric tribes. And then we used it as a supreme. So
Wow.
it doesn't even have a deity to it. They weren't. So according to Longi Melo's video, it's like one of the in the 20s. He made 35 videos, and he explained that. I haven't looked it up myself, but definitely I remember that for sure. It is not even a supreme being. It wasn't even a god that they worship. It was men who were like, say we worship Michael Jordan or something. And so that's where the Gotti came from, and then it became God.
Wow.
So we are saying that.
Wow. Well, as I was talking about earlier, in terms of language being or studying languages being the meditation of or a frequency, it reminds me of how, when we say speaking English is a low vibrational language versus
Yes.
how there's no like when understanding the construct of Kikongo and how it is a manifesting language, there's no ability to innately lie in Kikongo. And there's a few other like characteristics that are like, wait, what? That I think are amazing, but it goes to show you that as a man thinketh, and when the Most High spoke, things into existence, it was clearly the ability to think or meditate, focus, be intentional, and then produce. That is the vibration and frequency of languages. So, like as you're saying, whether it's a deity or God or whatever, and how we say the word God, the language is the manifestation of the thought
Yes.
or the intention. And so I think of when we talk about languages or being language learning in the spiritual parallel, I think that as Kikongo as we are learning Kikongo in the setting of Kikongo, because every time I've looked at the scripture and tried to find the Kikongo meaning of a word, like you keep saying, the onion effect or the rippling effect of changing words and how it's just a greater extension and a greater expansion of the word I was initially looking for. Now I've gone down this rabbit hole of like, you know, prophetic meaning essentially. So with that context of vibration and sound and frequency, I want to talk about how Kikongo is a tonal language and what that means, and just, yeah, what is that? What is a tonal language?
Okay. So again, I am going to humble myself and say, all I'm going to tell you what I learned from Melo, and I can only talk about Mandarin Chinese. In a lot of Asian languages, they're tonal. And what tonal means is the tone or a sound has to be hit properly.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't hit it properly, you actually manipulate the meaning of the word.
Okay.
So what's a phrase that everybody says who watches the common channels?
CME?
Matondo masaka.
Yeah, okay.
The first thing I used to say was Matondo masaka. Now, um, uh, gosh, if I could type that on the screen. So
You can share your.
the I can share or I can type. Will they be able to see if I type it in the chat?
No.
Oh, okay. Forget it. I'll just say, um, maybe I can write it like I remember when Longy Melo did those videos with the Issachar couple.
Yeah, he wrote.
And so this, I'm writing, I'm going to write Matondo Masaka on a piece of paper to show you what the tone means. It basically means that you need to hit that word on the syllable where your voice needs to be rising. So in Matondo, it's the second syllable. So I'm going to do it like I do in my class. And my kids call me crazy because I'm so exaggerative. Um, so here's the word, and I hope it doesn't come out backwards. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so matondo. If you hit the word on this syllable, you changed it. It needs to be tone, like tone. Matondo, and then masaka is on the first syllable. And that means that by saying it that way, you're saying it correctly and you're giving it its full meaning, its full frequency, the full dose of the nutrients in which that word has for you. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, when we're learning, we're going to make the mistake of hitting the wrong syllable. I do it all the time. But when I make a mistake, I run back to Longi, which means teacher, prophet. I go to Longi Melo. That's why I call him Longi Melo, because he's the teacher. What do I know? I can't go, hey, it's just like Spanish. I don't need your help anymore. Thanks very much. I got it from here. If you have that attitude, just pack up and go live in a hole, because you're never going to learn anything. You're never going to reach the potential of the relationship with the Most High if you have this attitude of, I got it from here. Don't worry. No, never. And so there's masaka. So maton do masaka. I'm going to use now to compare. I'm going to use Chinese. I'm just going to say hello, because maton do masaka means thank you very much for those who don't know. And then here's another example of a tone. I'm using Pinyin. Pinyin is because Chinese is written in characters, but when you use Roman letters so that the American can read it, that's called Pinyin. So you see how I made a V on top of the letter I? The sound is on. So ni hao. If I just said ni hao, that's a whole different word. I change it. Now, I don't know what the word is because I'm not fluent in Kikongo to know if I say masaka, I know that's a different word. I just don't know what word it is. But I know in Chinese, if I take uh, ni hao ma, if I change ma, um, ma is question. And Kikongo has, so this is another supremacy of Kikongo. Kikongo has a word like Chinese that means spoken question mark.
Yeah.
And Swahili also has a word that means spoken question mark. But in my conclusion of Kikongo, the Chinese took that concept from Kikongo, not the opposite way around, because Chinese is a really ancient language, Mandarin. But uh,
I
here
want
it is.
Tai Chi and all the rest of it.
Yeah, so the one on the bottom here, that is Kikongo, nga, nga. That's a spoken question mark. It means it doesn't have a meaning. It just means I'm asking you a question. In Swahili, it's je. So it's like, hey, do you know where so and so is? Nga, blah, 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 blah. Ma. But so in Chinese, it comes in the back of the sentence. In Swahili, which is a Bantu language, in Kikongo, it comes in the front of the sentence. It's almost like saying, I have an announcement to make. I have a question. And now I'm going to say what the question is. So we don't have this in English. Like maybe in slang, yo, what you doing? But yo is not, doesn't mean a question. It just calling your attention.
Yeah.
Whereas that is a specific word that means I'm announcing to you that I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Another feature that the other languages don't have.
Yeah.
So it's really deep. So the tones and those words are like quick. It's like you have to say it in the right way. Otherwise, you obscure the meaning. So when a native speaker listens to you and you say, like, say, I say, matando, matanda maseka, maybe they'll understand that you're trying to say it, but you just ruined. So now they're distracted by the fact that you didn't hit the tone right and you lost that connection.
Mhm.
Matondo masaka. I was saying it wrong, and Longi Melo corrected me, and I'm like, masaka. And it just started filling me like masaka. And I believe it was Brother Masia that said masaka. It sounds like massacre.
Mm.
And it's like when you massacre something, you just take it full on. And masaka in Kikongo means a whole lot. Thank you very much. Thank you a whole lot. So that massacre, it's the sound. It's like it's coming, like the sound creates the meaning. So there's your vibration.
Yes. Okay.
Matondo massacre. I thank you so very much. Like
Mm.
I'm hitting that tone. I'm a drummer, and I also when I teach students language and they're a drummer, I say you. That's where you crash the cymbal right there.
Hey.
Masaka, matondo masaka. You
That's
know, it's almost like you feel a martial arts, and the energy just fills you up when you say the word right. So yeah, you could say, you know, tatanzambi, bam. That's where that word has to be emphasized. So the tone has to be right. Otherwise, I don't know. For me, it fills me up.
that's good. That's
I,
good.
it gives me a chill when I say it right. And when I get the confirmation from the native speaker, which in this point in my life is Longi Melo.
That's beautiful. So the last thing that I feel led to emphasize or to touch on is the loss. I really find it so interesting. So as we talk about languages, frequencies, the expansion of meaning within a language, can you share how meaning is lost in translation and what that looks like? I know we're talking a lot about, obviously, you have translated Tio Melo's books, and you were explaining how you went from English to Spanish to Kikongo. So, can you talk about how you have to have an understanding of a word and the phrase and the meaning, or the difference? I guess it's the difference between translation and interpretation.
Yes.
Yes.
So translation refers to written, translating things that are written. Interpreting is doing it by speech.
Mm-hmm.
So when you interpret, I'm not looking at anything written, I'm listening to the sound.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing a translation, I can look at the word and then I could like make the sound secondary. So if I'm interpreting, I have to hear the sounds and the sounds need to be accurate for me to produce a proper translation. But there are there are a lot of things that get lost in meaning. And the first time I discovered that was when I was in church, um, and I heard the word being preached. And I'm like, okay, I would love to hear this in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I took my little money as a teenager and I went and bought to the Christian bookstore and I ordered. And at the time they didn't have Spanish Bibles. I had to order, special order it. So, and the Bible came like 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I listened to the word being preached in English and I was reading it in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I saw the discrepancy. And I was like, what? That's not what that means. And
Wow.
so, as far as I understand, the Spanish Bible came first, as far as in translation. The English Bible was translated later,
Mm-hmm.
at least the version that's popular.
Mm-hmm.
And they were translated by different monarchs. So Queen Isabella had her team, and King James had his team, but
Wow.
there were other translations before that.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who likes to use the Septuagint.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's deep.
Mm-hmm.
We study together. When she reads it out, I'm reading King James, she's reading the Septuagint. I'm like, that doesn't say that. And there's a lot of things about the awakening that if you read it in the Septuagint, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, and this is in English, not even talking about the Latin and all.
Mm-hmm.
But because so if I were to rank superior the language, I would say between the Latin languages, Spanish being one of them, in English, Spanish reigns supreme to English because it's more descriptive. English is a very vague language. That's why there's so much fighting and arguing in English because we can't understand each other. The language doesn't provide enough clarity of what we're saying. So we always have to say, what do you mean by that? What do you mean when you say this? Well, I mean this. Okay, well, when you say that you mean that, do you really mean that? It's so vague. There's so many extra words that you have to use. Whereas when you use Spanish, the word by itself, like I can say one word in Spanish. So I'll give two words. I'm assuming that you're tall. I don't know if you're tall.
Mm-hmm.
So in a full sentence, I can say, eres una persona alta.
Oh,
You are a tall person.
mm-hmm.
But Spanish has a trick. I can just eliminate all those words and reduce it to two words, and I just said the same thing. La alta. La alta, the tall one. And because it's in the feminine form, I just said the tall one who is female without ever mentioning the word female ever.
Yes.
La alta. And but English, I would have to say you are a tall person. I don't even know if that's male or female. I don't know if they're old or young. I know nothing. I'm still lost in English. So here's an example of lost translation just by saying a person's tall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I were to say that in Kikongo, the Bantu languages have what they call noun classes.
Mm-hmm.
So the Romance languages have masculine, feminine, singular, and plural.
Mm-hmm.
The Bantu languages have not masculine and feminine, they have categories like this word, these groups of words are used for animals. These groups of words are used for people. These groups of words are used for inanimate objects. These groups of words are used for plastics, or I'm just making that up right there. But I mean, there's an Mwa class and a Watu, I mean, that's Swahili. But if I just say that word in that class, I don't need to say much more. I
Wow.
just told you everything with a few. That's like that. And so, and I'm getting this revelation right now. That's why, I mean, I'm hearing this in my spirit. That's why I told you every syllable counts. Because within the syllable, I have all kinds of surprises for you.
Mm-hmm.
English doesn't offer that. Spanish offers a few bits of that.
Mm-hmm.
Kikongo offers all of that.
Wow. Wow. What?
Well, I know that's what I feel like saying. Say what? Because I'm getting this right now as we're talking. The energy just flowed into me to say every syllable counts. If you
Yeah.
don't speak in tongues, ask the Most High for the gift of tongue, because every single syllable counts. And when you speak in tongues, you're going to hear that mother tongue come out of you.
Yes. And actually, Mama Brenda has a testimony.
I think I heard it.
Yes.
I remember seeing. I don't get to watch all the videos, but I heard her testify about, and it could be a whole different testimony, but I definitely remember her saying that she prayed something and it came out, and she asked someone, and it was Kikongo, and it was I can't remember the details, but you can.
Yeah. I think it was somebody who heard her speaking in tongues or something, and was like, "That's Kikongo."
And you just said blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard more words out of my mouth, but that when she said that, I'm like, confirmation.
Yeah.
Confirmación.
And I've heard other people say the same thing. So, I mean, as when you from a physical state, cells have memory. They are literally our code. And when we talk
about, I know where you're going with this.
Yes, right? Like the language is our code. And so when we talk about, you know, how you were saying is the key when you speak someone else's language in their dialect, it's this opening and this revelation of like, you're in, you know what I'm saying?
You just got into their whole self. You entered in, and it's like their look on their face is like, how did you get in here?
Yes.
And then you're saying, I got you. Yes. I speak the language.
You know how like the book, The 5 Love Languages? In my spirit, I hear it as the 7 love languages of Kikongo, because as Melo said, the number that cracks, or the code of Yisole, is 7, with the 7. Yes. So our love language literally is the 7 vibrations of the Most High, you know? And
it's so deep.
Explaining the different groups of words and how they are used, as well as like the different variations that they can be coupled with. I think he said like 3,000 possibilities.
Yes.
That in and of
it's over with right there. How do you have a language that has 3,000 possibilities? I already told you. I studied several languages. There's no 3,000 possibilities with any other language except that one.
Yeah.
I know that Swahili has 14 noun classes, and Kikongo has like 22 or 23. He said something in the 20s noun classes, which means, all right. So if I were to give you an example, in Spanish that we have the word red, and I'm sure French does the same thing. So if I say this is a red cup, es una taza roja. If I say it's a red book, es un libro rojo. So now I have 2 versions of the word book. But if I say 2 red cups, unas tazas rojas, 2 red books, unos libros rojos. So which means that one word has 4 versions. If you were to consider Swahili with the 14 options for classes, that means red has 14 options. And if you make it plural, 14 times 2 is 28, which means that the word red can be said in 28 different ways.
Wow.
So now if I go into Kikongo, so if I'm correct, I think Melo says the Kikongo has, I'll say 22. Okay. So say it has 22 noun classes.
I think it's 30 or 37. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Okay, so let's round it off to 30. Okay. So say you have 30 noun classes, right? That means that there's 30 ways to say red in the singular. And then when you make it plural, that means there's 60 ways to say the red.
Wow.
That's right there. And we're just talking about red. Yeah. The blood that was shed was red.
Hey.
And so that right there is deep. Because the name of my singing band is Crimson. Crimson representing the red, the deep. Because crimson is not just any kind of red; it's a deep, dark red. I actually have that you can't. I'm looking at the screen. You can't really see it. The red, and it's a blood that's so red it's rich, and it's crimson. And in Spanish, it's carmesí. I would love to know the word red in Kikongo.
Wow.
So imagine you have 60 ways to say red.
Wow. Yeah, it's just this is such a exciting topic as we within the diaspora are learning who we are. It's vibrating in such a way that is so intimate. It's our love language. And I think, you know, as we're learning this language, we're learning how to love each other. We're learning the true value of the Most High. I think, you know, with us speaking and vibrating on a lower frequency of English, you know, this has given us a whole new energy to where we're just expounding with revelation.
Exactly.
And
If
it's
we're feeling this great talking about this in English, imagine, imagine if we were like I've preached the awakening to a lot of people, and some people who know me know that I talk about a certain young man in a Spanish speaking nation in Africa. That's that testimony. That's what will be a whole nother time. If
yeah.
we can feel this way, and while I'm saying what I said that for is not to talk about him, but to talk about how I feel when I talk the awakening in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you from a fluent speaker of Spanish that when the same subject is talked about, it's a higher frequency.
Yeah.
I'm telling you from a Spanish speaker.
Yeah.
So, and then Spanish and Portuguese are very close.
Mm-hmm.
So, so close that if a Portuguese speaker speaks to me, I can understand them without interpretation. So imagine the Portuguese speakers
Wow.
talking about the awakening, and there's a higher frequency. And
Yeah.
then imagine speaking in a Bantu language, talking about the awakening. There's
Yeah.
an even higher frequency because the words just automatically, even if you don't intend for them to be deep, they're just deep. And then you go to the supreme language of Kikongo with that, and we're just making a round off figure, 60 words to say just the one adjective.
Yeah.
Imagine the other words, because I've analyzed, and there's a book that Melo has, and I'm going to beg him for the translation. I think it's the Kikongo Roots of Latin Languages. I have to translate that. He
Oh,
has a book called that. It's on Amazon, but I want to be able to translate it, and I will actually ask him for permission. It's so deep because I'm in the trenches of the Hispanic community. They
yeah.
need to be awakened. Those that look like us.
Yeah. Actually, there's a sister. I hope she sees this video. The image of her profile picture is like popping up in my head, but I forgot her name. Her first language is Spanish. She lives in South America, and I'm just so touched by, you know, the expansiveness of this awakening. So any of you all who speak Spanish, please comment below and connect with Mama Kana so that you all can just, you know, continue to bring our brothers and sisters, our Spanish speaking brothers and sisters into the
They
awakening.
need to be awakened. So let me just say that in Spanish.
Yeah.
Cualquier de ustedes que están escuchando mi voz, es muy necesario que nosotros nos reunimos porque es muy importante que el pueblo latino se levante porque eso es un pueblo que como un gigante durmiente. Por favor, conéctense conmigo. La señorita va a poner mi correo electrónico. Yo quiero que ustedes conecten conmigo porque es muy importante. Estamos viviendo en los últimos días y es hora de levantarnos, es hora de seguir adelante.
Yes, exactly.
Ingueta.
Ingeta, for sure. Um, and so yeah, with that being said, unless you want to say anything else, unless you have any other thing regarding humility and spirituality and learning languages and the supremacy of Kikongo, which will no longer be a supremacy any longer.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say because if I start talking again, we're gonna be here all night. Because it's one
Okay.
of my, it's like right now, my stomach and my whole body is churning because I've been like, there's something igniting in me to talk about the language. And, I have a big passion, of course, for the Latino community, the
Yeah,
Afro-Latino community,
yeah,
because for those of you who are African American who don't know, our Afro-Latino American, Latino Americanos, they suffer a lot.
yeah,
They get made fun of for not being as European as the others. They go through police brutality. It's a parallel existence. The Afro Mexicanos, all of them. So to give them the news that they're the apple of Tatanzambi's eye, come on.
Yes, yes,
And when we get to Brazil,
yeah, yes.
so
All of my brothers and sisters in South
yeah,
America. I shared with you my experience in Colombia, and it was the world. It was
that's
beautiful
awesome.
to see, to know, obviously, that our culture is just mocked and loved. It's just really lust after all around the world. They just fiend for our Arkembo, the most high in us. They sense it in us, they see it in us,
And
and
you know what's funny? Every Latino country has a name for their dances and stuff.
yes.
And if you study the history of those dances, it was what the founding fathers of those countries hated. But
Mm,
now it's what that country is known for.
yeah, yeah,
Cumbia is what's known in Colombia. Cumbia is straight from the motherland.
yes. Angola,
Um,
fact, I think, right?
the
Bachata,
what?
isn't it Angola?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. Yeah, because Cumbia has a group of people. Colombia has a group of people in the black part of Colombia, Cartagena,
Yes.
the Palenque people. And it was funny because our brother sent me a video, but what he didn't know is I had already watched that video in preparation for my class months before. So what happened was that video that he was showing me, and I had already seen it, and then linking it to the Bantus, the
Mhm.
Palanquero.
Yes.
Um, and I already have friends in Colombia who are black, you
Yes.
know. So it's yeah, I'll be talking all day.
Well, I just want to share. I had this amazing experience when I was in Cartagena, and it was this. I was minding my business, walking down the street, and this guy comes up to me. He said, "You are negra. You are negra. I am negro. You are my sister. You are beautiful." And I'm like, "What?" And it was just like literally tear jerking moment because he said, "Where are you from?" Like just this congeniality, this love. And so to feel that in that moment outside of this awakening, I can only imagine. I dream about the moment that I get to see some of you all in person, that we get to worship, that we get to just give the Most High all the Kimball. So it was
Oh,
such.
there is one thing I wanted to say, and it almost slipped my mind.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
in learning Kikongo, I was getting all excited. I'm like, okay, I love all these other languages. I'm gonna put them aside and learn Kikongo. And then the Most High stopped me, and he's like, no, don't stop learning Chinese. Don't stop learning. And then here's the reason why.
Yes.
Our brothers and sisters are still in those different Babylons,
Yes.
and by speaking the language, we are reaching out to them. So I'm learning several languages so that I can be used as an instrument to reach them.
Yes.
And so it was a humbling experience too, to not stop learning languages of Babylon, because we need to let our people go. We need to be able to unlock their prisons
Yes.
with the language, because the language is it can set you free or lock you up.
That's good.
And all you is who only speak English, you're a bit locked up.
Yeah.
We are. We can't express ourselves in full. We have to keep walking around in circles with language
Yes.
because it's just not a proper expression. So
Yes. And the fact that the Most High would take us from English to Kikongo, that is a bless. That is an increase in and of it.
that's from low to high.
Yes, exactly. All right. So I know it's time. I thank you so much just for this opportunity. Thank you for sharing with everyone, with the world, what I have been so privileged to experience and hear from you personally. And I hope that it's not the last time. But I'm so grateful for your time and just for your presence. So I will pray out, and then I'm going to ask you to pray out in Spanish as well.
Oh,
In fact, you know what? Why don't you just go ahead and pray out in Spanish?
Tatan Zambia, Zulu, tenemos esa oportunidad de darte gloria, de levantar tu nombre en alto y darte todo lo que tú mereces. Y esta es una oportunidad que yo clamo a ti, papá, para alcanzar los prisioneros que no saben quién son, que están sufriendo, que están en momentos de soledad y necesitan escuchar de ti, papá. Yo te levanto tu nombre y yo declaro Tatanzambia Mazulu, el creador del mundo entero. Yo declaro ese momento para ti. Dedico cada palabrita que nosotros articulamos en este video, lo dedico a ti, lo presento a ti, te entrego mi corazón y quiero que tú hagas lo que tú quieres, haga conforme tu voluntad en la tierra como en el cielo. Ingeta.
Ingesa. Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to hearing your comments, your contributions, and just any revelation that you've received from this conversation. Please comment and share with all of us. So until next time, family, talk to y'all later.
Conéctense. Gracias.